So the question of today comes from Fernando. He is a local dancer and also musician from the Carolina Reapers. His question is very broad, and it is social dancing versus performing versus competing, and then he goes into specific questions about them, so I'll try to answer them one by one and hopefully it will make sense. The first question is, which place do they have in Lindy Hop nowadays versus back then? And I can't say for sure because I don't know much about a history, but I do know about the French I took. We can safely assume that back in the days, because it was part of the popular culture, there was more performances with Lindy Hop and swing content, and we also know that the competitions they had were more for the general population, the kind of dance till you drop kind of thing with huge prize money, or even the Harvest Moon Bowl. And I don't think we'll ever get to have competitions like that again, because it will probably never be the main culture again. So right now Lindy Hop kind of exists in that half mainstream, half underground kind of thing, and the performing and the competing aspect of it are the ones that are gonna probably suffer the most from it. But the social aspect of it is, I assume, similar, except of course for the live music, who was probably the bomb back then and now is good, but probably nothing compared to listening to basic live. So that's where I think things are at, but it's my understanding, and anybody who actually knows more about those things is welcome to contradict me or complete any information there. So that's for question one. The next question is, which place do I think each one of them should have in the new dancers progression? So it seems to me like you can't really perform or compete in anything if you don't know anything about it. So I would say the first step for a new dancer would be to learn to dance, and the best way to learn to dance is to go to classes and social dance. And usually in classes you're gonna learn a mix of choreography or social dancing content. So I would probably wait maybe 6 months before I do any performance, but it depends. Like if you're performing for your family and you're just showing the swing out you just learned, maybe that can be called performance too. But for a new dancer, I would encourage them to social dance also, because I think if you make friends in the community, you're more likely to stay in it. It's something that I think really exists in the sharing with friends, sharing with the musician. It's a bit harder those days with the quarantine situation, because like we have online material, but I definitely feel like it's an art form that exists around people. And I think it's also the best part about Lindy Hop is because it's not a codified dance. For me, it exists primarily in that social dancing aspect, about how each one of us can interpret the music, moves a different way, and how we adjust to each other doing that. So for a new dancer, I would recommend taking classes so you're exposed to different ways of moving, and then social dancing as well, so you can practice improvising and dancing with someone. I did my first competition, I think, after 6 months of dancing, and I don't know if I would recommend that to anyone, but anything that will make you practice is good. So if you need a deadline, and I think performances and competitions are very good for that because they provide you with a deadline, you will definitely become good at dancing. I would say for beginner dancers, maybe half-year show or end of a year show where they have a choreography to remember is a good way to go, because the choreography can be very simple, but just have in it the basic moves that are the staples of Lindy Hop. You know, all the moves we can name, 6 count and 8 count basics, all those. And it's a choreography, but it's more a way to memorize vocabulary and put it in your body. It's a good way to learn. The next question is what to focus on when training or when social dancing. So I think I will speak more largely about the training aspect of it. When you're training, you can, for example, practice your social dancing. But because it's a training, I would try to pinpoint the troublesome area in your dancing and try to create an exercise that maybe targets that specific problem. So let's say if you have a problem understanding if you have to stay out or come back in, I would do exercises where you do swing outs and then switches and see if you don't anticipate coming back in. Or if you have a problem mixing moves, I would try to take different moves that are part of your basics and then make sure that when you social dance you can put them in a different order or maybe hold a different hand. And then as a follower I would practice do like a specific rhythm in different situations. So there are a lot of different ways where I think you can practice your social dancing skills where it's not entirely a social dance, because you can't really ask people to do the same move over and over when you're social dancing. I've done that to friends before, but usually after like once or twice, if I don't get the move, then I just let it go and we keep on dancing, because the social dancing is not, it is a form of practice, but it's more of a fun environment kind of thing, and I see the practice side of things maybe as a little bit more intellectual or a little bit more targeted for a specific reason. You can practice your performing through different lenses depending on where you are with your dancing. If it's just about dancing in front of people, bring people in so they can watch you dance. If it's about memorizing choreography and you're struggling with that, maybe starting with a shorter choreography and then making it to a bigger one. If you're at a level where you feel like you can start creating your own material, then maybe you can film yourself social dancing and try to integrate some of the ideas you like in the choreography. Or you can try to find something that you like in somebody else dancing and then make it your own. If you want to practice competing, maybe practicing dancing a little bit faster, but definitely you're gonna become better at competing the more you compete, and you're gonna become better at performing the more you perform. So depending where you want to be with your dancing and which aspect of the dance you want to get better at, I would try to do more of that one. But they're all complementary and they will all reinforce you as a dancer. So the next question is, how do I implement those in my teaching, and does it depend on the level? So I'm gonna talk about performing more as in a general way, like choreographing or dancing a choreography. So when I teach, I usually do a mix of social dancing material or choreographic material, and I think they are good for different reasons. I know that if you're a social dancer, maybe sometimes you go to a class and you're learning a choreography and you can be frustrated because you feel like it's not helping you becoming the social dancer you want to be. But I want to encourage you to think a little bit differently, because when you have a choreography, what you're learning is repeating, a lot of repetition, and repetition will get you to do the moves you do better. So that's the first aspect of choreography that I think is interesting. The other one is for a follower especially, we rarely have the chance to know what's coming next, and so as a result we sometimes don't get to push our movements to the max. So when you have a choreography, you know what's coming, and then you can try to position your body in a way that is more comfortable or more aesthetic. So I usually use choreography for that. The other thing is, as a teacher, sometimes if you're teaching something in social dancing, it can be a little bit harder to assess whether the student is getting it or not, Whereas if it's a choreography, you have a clear understanding of where they're at, because there is no BS with choreography. You're either like getting it or you're not, you're on time or you're not, and there is no, oh, but I was feeling like doing this other thing. It's just the task that you have to do is very precise. So I think it's a very good teaching tool. And I don't think it's too early to start doing choreographic material, but for sure, if it's a lower level, that choreography is definitely going to be more simple, and it's not going to be very long, and it's going to be more a way to integrate the basic vocabulary. There is an aspect of performance that is dancing for a crowd and trying to engage a crowd, but I feel like I don't usually get to talk about those things in class, but I'm also trying to figure them out for myself, so maybe one day I can talk about those things more. For now, it's more about learning choreography and learning to dance better in general. Regarding social dancing, I also try to give some limitations to the students, because first of all, I think you get more creative when you have more limitation, but it also helps me read the room a little bit better. So some things I would do sometimes is give them a very precise rhythm and then let them explore the different shapes that rhythm can take, or the different moves they can put that rhythm in. Or sometimes it would be, I would ask them to have those basic moves and then maybe try to find different exits, or try to mix them in a different way, try to find different handhold, but I usually don't let it be too broad. But it's more my style of teaching. I know some people maybe teach a little bit more broad improvisation, but I like to keep my students accountable, and I like to be able to check what's really going on, so I usually try to limit the freedom they can have so I can keep them in check. So that's it for how I take those in account in my teachings. And again, performing is more choreography for me, and competing is more for me about becoming a better dancer. And so I feel like in the way, even if I don't specifically teach people how to compete, teaching them about musicality, about better technique, about better quality of movement will get them to be a better competitor without specifically have to talk about any competition format or anything like that. Or pushing up the speed, which again is something that I think you can do more easily with choreography. So maybe if you're doing a comp and show kind of thing, you can expect that you're going to be pushed a little bit. So you're probably going to learn some choreography, and you're probably going to have to dance kind of fast. So I think that's how I do it. I don't know how other people do it, but I'm happy if anybody has anything else that works really well. You can let me know how that goes. The last question is, would I say that advanced dancers have to focus on performing at some point in order to keep improving? Yes, definitely. Because again, I think when you're social dancing, you can kind of get very comfortable, and I think there's a danger to becoming a little too comfortable, and when you have to perform, you have a deadline and you have something to practice for. And I think if you don't have a deadline, you can easily become lazy or find excuses to not become better. And if you're satisfied with where your dancing is at, you probably don't need to do that. But if you want to improve, it seems like performing is the way to go. And I would say mainly because if you're creating your own content, you have to put more of yourself in it, more of your vision, more of your understanding of the music, and it will not only enrich your dancing, but it will also inspire the people around you and maybe the generation of newcomers. You will also have to look at how your dancing is perceived from the outside. And this is always challenging, but you will learn from it. And I have definitely learned a lot like that through performances, even if they were social dancing performances. I could see myself on video and then notice the things that I was doing that needed some fixing. So having that feedback from how your dancing looks like is definitely helpful to help you improve, because we're not necessarily always aware of what we're doing, and when you see it on video you're like, oh, okay, this is what I look like, interesting. So it's a good way to go about it. Another way to become a better dancer in a way is competing, but it's not for the result. I think it's more for the process. I think of learning to face your fears and learning to push yourself. And there's only one winner. So when you're competing, the chances are you're probably not going to win, but learning to deal with those tiny failures and learning to push through, I think will also help you. It will help you resilience, and as long as it doesn't kill your motivation, I would say it's important to do it. It's important that you put yourself out there. And because, again, Lindy Hop is not so codified, the result of that competition are going to say more about the person who's watching it and their taste, or maybe how your dancing was perceived that day, but it doesn't mean your voice shouldn't be out there. And so you can't really take that results too seriously. You just have to take it more as like a deadline and a way to like have a little bit of fire under your butt, you know, to like to push. And I think in a way it's healthy to compete, as long as it doesn't entirely destroy you or kill your motivation. So if that's too much, performing is the way to go. But I think nowadays those two tend to blend, because Lindy Hop is not so much part of the main culture. We don't have so much outlets to perform. So usually, unless you're a teacher and you get to demonstrate yourself in a workshop, the only other way to do that is to sign up to a competition and show the choreography you've made, or do a mix and match, or do a fast dancing competition. But I think the competing and the performing aspect of the dance have merged a little bit. So yeah, if you want to become a better dancer overall, push yourself. It's going to feel maybe a bit uncomfortable, but you will grow from it. I hope it answers the question. Thanks for taking the time to listen to me blah 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 blah. And if you have any more questions, you know where to find me, Instagram or Facebook. If you like the video, you can subscribe. I'll try to keep doing them. And thank you again. See you next time.